they will be beating you all the time. But I myself, I cannot. Oh. Me, I can't, because if I discover, if you just slap me.
Note that these figures likely represent only a fraction of the true underreported total due to systematic issues.
And in the same vein, Fine Crispin equally spoke with a man on God on the rising phenomenon of femicide and what can be done. Take a listen to Pastor Tita David.
The phenomenon we are experiencing today is what scripture has predicted before. Jesus said that there will be war, father will be fighting against son, son against father, wife against husband. Unfortunately, the women, they are the victims because the Bible calls them the weaker vessel. Unfortunately, they are the victims who are suffering from this. And I want to say that this is an issue that needs an intervention of a psychologist, because the men may also be going through some traumatic situations which the women are victims of that. So I will suggest that the women should be able to survey their husbands, because the man will not just get up at the twinkle of an eye and commit an act against the woman. It is something that has been ongoing, because it starts from somewhere. It starts from little shouting, little slap and things like that. So the women should be observant, and once they take note of certain things that are going, which is very abnormal of the man, they should call for an intervention from a counselor, from a psychologist.
In politics, the mortal remains of late Anisete Kane, president of the Manidem Party, can now be withdrawn from the Yaoundé General Hospital mortuary for burial. This follows an official correspondence addressed to the director of the health facility, lifting the restrictions by the government on the corpse. Our reporter Glory Ngange got the reactions of some political actors on these developments and compiled the following report.
The decision to withhold the body of George Anise Ekane was passed by the commissioner at the Military Tribunal of Yaoundé. In a letter addressed to the Yaoundé Central Hospital, the law firm of Hippolyte Meli Tiakwang instructed the hospital administration to permit the withdrawal of the corpse by the family. Yakubu Njikam of the CPDM says the decision is worth applauding.
It is something to appreciate, because seeing today the communique that will permit the wife and the entire family to bury the corpse of Mr. Anise Kane is something positive, because whatever be the circumstances of the death of somebody, the simple thing is that he should be buried and then for his soul to rest in perfect peace.
The political actor further gives some possible reasons for the retention of late Anise Ekane's corpse.
Sealing the corpse of this political leader was something ununderstandable, but it was normal because they needed to carry on certain investigations to find out what caused his death. Was it due to ill treatment he received at the place? Was it due to his previous medical conditions? Many things were still to be found out before authorizing the corpses to be taken away.
Cotton Princewill is member of the Movement of Patriotism and People's Priority, the MP3 party. He states that the government is still expected to make an official statement explaining happenings surrounding the death of Anise Ekane.
The release of the seal of this corpse is not something which we want to thank the state. Why? Because, of course, the state needs to be answerable to the passing away of Anise Ekane, and this is something which we, the opposition, we are strongly behind and will keep pushing, because it is the state needs to answer for its wrongdoings.
It is worth noting that Anise Ekane died on December 1st, 2025 in detention after being arrested in relation to post-electoral crisis in October 2025.
Let's now take what's making news out of Cameroon with our senior reporter and editor-in-chief, Mapala Zita. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brian.
Zita, we begin in Uganda, where you say the President Museveni blocked a church mass for jailed opposition leader.
Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has blocked a church mass scheduled to honor opposition figure Kizza Besigye, who has been in jail since 2024, facing treason charges. According to a statement from his wife, Winnie Byanyima, who is also the executive director of UNAIDS in Uganda, She was called by the Archbishop and told that President Museveni asked to cancel the mass. Besigye, who is a former personal doctor to Museveni, was abducted by armed men in Nairobi in November 2024 and only reappeared few days later at a military court in Uganda. He has been in jail for about 15 months, and despite facing health issues, he has repeatedly been denied bail. His family insists that the purpose for the mass with supporters was to pray for his health and release, but Museveni reportedly said it was political and needed to be investigated.
From Uganda, we move to Tunisia, where the lawyer who was jailed by anti-terror court has been released.
Prominent Tunisian lawyer Ahmed Swab, who was released from prison yesterday, had served a 10-month jail term handed down by an anti-terror court. The 69-year-old was detained in April last year after condemning a mass trial of public figures on whose defense team he had served. He alleged that judges were under political pressure to hand down hefty sentences in the mass trial of critics of President Kais Saied. Some 40 people were sentenced to up to 45 years in prison last year for conspiracy against the state security and belonging to a terrorist group in the high-profile trial. Swab had accused authorities of putting a knife to the throat of the judge who was to deliver the verdict. Swab was earlier sentenced to 5 years in prison, but the verdict was later reduced to 10 months on appeal, which he has now served, this according to his lawyers.
Before you go, Zita, tell us what else is making news in your file.
New tariffs on imported goods announced by U.S. President Donald Trump have come into effect days after the country's Supreme Court struck down most of his previous tariff regime. Washington imposed an additional tariff from today of 10% on all goods not covered by exemption. This, according to a notice issued by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The move added to confusion surrounding U.S. trade policy, with no explanation offered for why the lower rate had been used. And then former British ambassador to the U.S. Peter Mandelson has been released from police custody today after being arrested in London on suspicions of misconduct in public office following revelations over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson was fired from the most prestigious posting in Britain's diplomatic service in September when the depth of his friendship with the convicted sex offender started to become clear.
In sports, the American Football Federation of Cameroon has officially launched their activities for the 2026 sports season following a flag gala match held at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium. The season launcher was held in partnership with the U.S. Embassy and doubled as a celebration of the USA's 250th anniversary, strengthening sports diplomatic ties. After the event, the Federation President Awasum Jr. hailed the event, attended by diplomats and students from 14 institutions, as a fresh start to building lasting bilateral relations through sport. Here's an excerpt.
This is an activity that we started since the 6th of February. We coaching clinics, we coaches over 8 regions of Cameroon that came and participated. And today we're doing exhibition games with almost 14 high schools, secondary school and high institutions in Cameroon present here at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium. First of all, on a promotional standpoint, vulgarization standpoint, I think we're gaining grounds. Secondly, to have the US Embassy put their weight to help us push the game. As you know, flag football is now an Olympic sport and it's going to be in early 2028. So it's very vital to create awareness and also to develop that cooperation. And then one other point too, the US is celebrating 250th anniversary. So for us, partnering with them to celebrate that, they're also giving us to step our foot towards the early 2028 competitions and events.
Cameroon's senior men's basketball team has climbed to 4th place on the latest rankings released by the International Basketball Federation FIBA. This significant surge follows the Lions' 4th place finish at the 2025 FIBA AfroBasket Championship and a commanding start to their 2027 World Cup qualifying campaign. In the following excerpt, basketball consultant Iftala breaks down the key factors behind Cameroon's meteoric rise in the continental standings.
Cameroon is ranked fourth because of the last performance of the team. If you see since the qualification, window qualification for the Afrobasket, you see Afrobasket where Cameroon was in the semi-final, and you see the last windows of qualification of the World Cup where Cameroon finished second behind South Sudan by beating South Sudan. It was historical in Africa. So, because of all those performances, we are not surprised to see Cameroon at this place, because as you can see, the standings reflect the performance of the teams of the last competition. You can see that Guinea, for example, is first because of the performance in the qualification of the World Cup.
In foreign sports news, notably in Europe, 4 fixtures counting for the second leg of the playoffs round of the UEFA Champions League have been slated to hold today, beginning with an early fixture at 6:45 p.m. Atletico Madrid will play Club Brugge in the second leg of an encounter which ended in a 3-3 draw during the first leg. Bayer Leverkusen will head into the second leg today with a 2-0 lead. They grabbed in the first leg to face off against Olympiacos at 9 p.m. Inter will face off against Bodo Glimt after losing by 3-1 in the first leg. And finally, Newcastle United will face off against Qarabağ FK at 9 p.m. today after the first leg, which ended in a 6-1 win in favor of Newcastle United. Let's now have a summary of this newscast in the French language to be presented for us by Olivier Ndemaipo. Good afternoon.
Bon après-midi, Brian Biwa. Parlons économie avec le Cameroun qui est sur la voie de l'autosuffisance en matière de blé. Selon un récent rapport de l'Institut de recherche agricole pour le développement du Cameroun, c'est l'IRAD, le Cameroun a produit pour 200 hectares de blé dans la région de la Damawa. La dite production va approvisionner le pays en blé et réduire le poids des importations de cette céréale. Hors de nos frontières, les tarifs douaniers nouveaux imposés par Donald Trump, président des États-Unis d'Amérique, entrent en vigueur aujourd'hui. Ils imposent des paiements de l'ordre de 10% supplémentaires sur des produits qui entrent dans le territoire américain. Vendredi dernier, le Parlement américain avait rejeté une autre hausse de 15%. Les tarifs douaniers, une autre baisse, une autre hausse demandée par Donald Trump. Et puis, sport pour finir, le Cameroun sera aux prises demain à Kinshasa avec la République démocratique du Congo, la RDC. Il va s'agir de la 3e journée du tournoi Unifac 2026, qualificatif à la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations 2026 de football U17 messieurs. Seules les 2 meilleures nations de ce tournoi zonal Unifac vont se qualifier pour Maroc 2026. Les 2 nations que sont le Cameroun et la RD Congo ont chacune remporté les 2 premières journées de compétition.
We end the 2 p.m. news on this note. Special thanks goes to Romeo Adekume, who was on the technical dashboard. On the cameras, we had Len Quickham for our various social media handles. Production assistance came in from Free Crispin and Gang Nadesh. Editorial coaching we had from Abel Bela Samari. Coordination came in from the station's manager Roger Kiek, and for general supervision, the Reverend Pastor Bisai Emmanuel Noel. For presentation, my name is Biwa Brian, setting up the stage for what is coming up next on Reality.4 FM, which is part 2 of Fresher Royale. She has joined me in the studio for part 2. Raisa Parker, good afternoon.
Biwa Brian, good afternoon.
What should we expect?
Oui, on va rester avec les mêmes thématiques. Voilà. On va reparler de ce monsieur de 40 ans qui vit dans la maison familiale et porte la main sur sa mère. Voilà. Donc décide de presque fermer un œil de sa mère. Yes.
It's not a good thing.
Non. Rien ne peut justifier un acte pareil. Si vous demandez mon avis sur cette histoire, rien. Je dis